Challenger Bastian, as far as the Riverwalk program down there, is it the role of government to be involved in that? Should that amount of money have been invested in that? Should have been the private sector?
Absolutely not. I think
Which absolutely not what?
it should not have been taxpayer dollars invested. It should be more private sector, do it under city guidelines. You know, he mentioned 5.7 million. I believe the total investment and money spent down there over the years is probably closer to 15 million. And
well, let me ask you this.
there's really nothing to show for it at this point.
Well, obviously, but let me ask you this. What incentive do you give developers to make that kind of investment, especially in riverfront property? It's very expensive.
That's correct, but why should we get, you're saying...
What incentive do you give?
What are you saying, give away incentives?
What do you give any?
That's giving away tax dollars. I would do that very frequently or very infrequently, I'm sorry. I don't believe you should be giving away tax dollars to developers to come in and develop. If they want to get down there, let them develop it on their own under city guidelines.
Councilman Pohlmann, what about the idea of local government's role in terms of trying to spur development with the use of tax dollars, with the hope that on the other end something will develop?
Well, again, it depends on the scale of what your return on your investment is going to be. We did some incentivizing for Radon, for example, for them to come into town, minimum incentives in order to get them here. And of course, they came in and brought a couple hundred jobs with them. Just let me correct one thing here. That $15 million investment, that's mostly private funding. That's not public funding. I think it's a misnomer out there.
I think that's the total worth.
Yeah,
of the
that's the
project.
total worth down there. So it's not the city or taxpayers that put that money. Yes, I'll be honest with you. I do believe in if there's a good return on your investment, I believe it's important for the citizens to open up the opportunity for developers to come in and come in and put some projects in there. Now we're talking about incentives, could be expanding of your tax base, which eventually comes around to help our residents, or it can be in a form of jobs and good high-paying jobs. Those are all important for the development of a community, and sometimes you do have to incentivize.
How about things like
projects.
waiving permits or
Sometimes
impact fees and that kind
Well,
of thing?
impact fees are difficult, and impact fees as they stand right now cannot be waived. But yes, some permit fees can be waived. And again, it depends, each project has its unique opportunities for the city of Port Orange. So yes, it is a joint effort between citizens, our taxpayers, and the private side of things to bring business to the community.
Okay, let's move on to some other things. We just finished 4-day Biketoberfest, highlighted by the Republican ticket coming to Daytona. Did Port Orange see any, did Port Orange get any back of the, was Biketoberfest evident at all in Port Orange this year? Has it dwindled?
The city of Port Orange or
Yeah,
Port Orange
Port Orange
businesses?
community.
Well, yeah, some of the businesses, of course, the restaurants, bars, things, there were bigger crowds for a few days, but the city itself didn't have a great benefit from Biketoberfest.
Well, I think what I'm trying to get at is not necessarily municipal government, but the community as a whole. These special events, are they still having as big of an impact as they had maybe 10 years ago?
Well, I don't think Bike Week is. Bike Week is actually heading out west. The land has picked up a lot of the business, and certainly heading up north, up in the Ormond Beach area. That's where most of the bikers.
Destination.
That's where the destination. Now, of course, we have a couple of our local bars. I think the Last Chance down there on Ridgewood. We still have some interest with our local taverns. They like to come in and hold a special event, and of course they're welcome to do that. But they've been very good partners with the city. They've been extremely compliant in what the rules and regulations are, and so we don't discourage bikers. Maybe certain elements of the biker community we don't like to see in Port Orange, and I think everybody would agree to that. But by and large, our bikers are professional people who come down here to have a good time, and I certainly encourage our local business owners to profit from that as best they can.
Okay, we've got time for one more question before we do closings. This one I want us to save for last because I really want to get a true understanding from the challenger and the incumbent. I challenge you, Bastian, tell us about the water issue in Port Orange, from how you see it, without giving a big speech.
Okay.
We're running out of time. If you need time to put your notes together, I can tell you.
No, I got it.
Okay.
Okay, the water issue, it's a very complex matter involving large amounts of money. They're not even sure how much yet. I mean, I know it's been estimated to the shores at $825,000. You know, it could be significantly greater than that.
Well, I was at a county council meeting last Thursday, and it was discussed that there may be issues related to the county as well, and being shortchanged.
That's correct. I believe the fly-in and a few areas have been overbilled.
Going back quite a number of years.
Absolutely. Probably maybe 4 years.
So how can something like this happen? I'm asking you.
Well, I'd like to know how it could happen, especially in when it was in an audit in 2008. Concerns were raised about the accounting and then using the Microsoft Excel spreadsheets versus a canned accounting program. And they were warned about it in 2008. They were admonished in 2009 for not making the change. And here we are 43 months later or longer, and they're still having significant issues with money.
And quickly, Councilman Pohlmann, it's easy to point fingers and make this thing sound like it's World War III, but is this more of a technical issue, or is this a human error, or is this just gross mismanagement?
Well, I don't know if it's gross mismanagement, but let me say this first of all. I will agree with Drew on this because it's very difficult to understand. And as we're progressing along here, the issues become more and more complex. What we've had as far as a local billing issue, and we had a complete breakdown of meters we were told were the sole source vendors for the water meters that we were using. We've had well over 3,000. We are in the process of correcting as best we can for the underbilling that occurred for our local residents. So hopefully, as more information comes out, and it is coming out slowly but surely, we'll get to the bottom of that issue and we'll make the corrections to move on. We obviously know that we can't continue with the census meters that we have. Now, as far as the billing to Daytona Beach Shores, that's, to me, that's at this point, and we're still at the early point of our investigation, there certainly seems to be some human error occurring. There was some,
I want to get to, I'm sorry to cut you off, so I apologize, but I want to get at least 2 citizen members who want to ask a question to come to the podium. Anybody want to ask a question? Please step forward. Give your first name, your last name, and your home community. And make the question brief, please.
Okay, the name is Richard Gerlone. I live here in Port Orange in Foxborough area. My question is, and I'll say that I've been in the fire department for 3 years. 2.5 years ago, there was an opportunity for a grant, $600,000 worth, to properly staff our department, and it was rejected, and I couldn't understand why, and I'd kind of like an answer to that, and maybe follow up.
Which candidate would you like to answer that question?
Well, Councilman Pohlmann was on the board at the time, so, I mean, not the board, the council at the time, so.
Briefly, Councilman.
yeah, what happened was there was a grant, I believe it was a 1-year grant, and the caveat with the 1-year grant was that the people that you hired to put on your department would have to remain on the department thereafter. And we were in the middle of, we still had an unsettled contract, so negotiations were continuing to go on. We didn't know where that was going. So it was very difficult for us to put a burden back on our taxpayers, knowing if we took these people, that these firemen, that we'd be stuck basically with additional pension costs. So it was not a good decision for the council to make, and I think we made the right decision.
Isn't that kind of like the program? Isn't that kind of like the program where the communities were bringing in police officers?
Yes, they were.
Where there was a
Right.
federal
Anytime
tax?
you do that, it's a federal grant. You're obligated to keep the personnel on board afterwards, and that's an additional cost.
Can I?
Sure, please, briefly now.
Just a minor correction. It was a 2-year grant that would have funded 4 positions, and you would have had to maintain it for the 3rd year. You don't have to maintain it further. It would have been maintained for the third year at city cost. So it would have not cost the burden of taxpayers.
Quickly, your follow-up.
It's free money.
Sir.
Oh, well, and part of that, I recall, it was said that third year could have been covered by the savings in overtime, and now we have an overtime issue, and that was attempted to be solved with the reserve program, which was unsuccessful and was illegal actually, and now it's cost taxpayers a lot more money than it should have.
All right, let me finish up. Let me finish up. No, please. Thank you. Let me finish up with them in terms of that question. When you have a situation of overtime versus a full-time position with benefits, some communities, I know in New Smyrna Beach, there's been positions cut because of the tax situation where it's more palatable to have the overtime than to have the...
Correct, and that was the situation, but also, again, it's a timing issue. We have accepted through the COPS grant police officers over the years, so it was a timing issue, and at that point, the timing issue was not the right time to take on additional costs to the city. It was as simple as that.
Does anybody have one quick question they want to ask? Good. Come on up. I'll get you the next debate. Okay.
Brian Spees, Oakland Park Subdivision. Councilman Pohlmann, follow up to that first question. Your concerns are that you'd have to keep on the people that were part of that grant, and you didn't feel that the city could do that at the time. But at the moment, the firemen are down at least 9 people. What would be the harm in keeping on those people that...
Well, again, you're talking about a situation that happened years ago and trying to compare it to what's going on today, okay? So that there's no comparison to that right now. Okay, at the time, a decision had to be reached, what was economical in the best interest of the citizens of Port Orange, and that was a decision that we reached at that time. So what happened, that was many years ago, 3-4 years ago. I don't know how it could relate to today.
We're really out of time, so I want to get to closings. I think the thing that's been most interesting to me up here, sitting in the middle, is this is obviously rank and file, and this is management, and a lot of interested firefighters. So with that, I'll start with you, Councilman Bastian, in terms of why you believe, as a challenger, the incumbent, it's time for the incumbent. What could you bring that he can't produce anymore that you would be able to put on the table?
Well, first off,
In 2 minutes.
I won't leave that long.
Okay.
I'm not going to be a rubber stamp politician or a yes man for the mayor at all. When I'm elected, I will remember that I don't work here to please city staff. I'm going to be pleasing the citizens that elected me. So their best interest is going to be in my radar constantly, 24/7. Everything I do will be for the best interest of the customers, citizens, taxpayers, however you want to refer to them, of the city that I live in.
Well, let me ask you this, and then I'll get to Mr. Pohlmann, Councilman Pohlmann. The esteemed Alan Green, the mayor of the city here in the audience. Would you be able to work with Mayor Green if you were elected?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Pohlmann, 2 minutes, you're closing.
Sure. Well, first of all, we have the mayor and we have 4 councilmen. I don't believe any one of the councilmen is a rubber stamp for anybody. But I will tell you this, to wrap it up, I could tell our citizens, our 56,000 residents, that their interests have always been foremost on our minds. We want to offer a good service for the lowest tax rate in eastern Volusia County, not counting our 2 communities, Ormond Beach and New Smyrna, that reside on the Atlantic Ocean with the high-rise condominiums, but Port Orange does have the lowest tax rate of any community on the east side of Volusia County. We offer very good service for the amount of the tax rate that they pay. We've been very proud of the accomplishments that we've made. We had South Williamson Boulevard expansion. We certainly wouldn't be able to do a project such as that if we were not in an extremely good financial position. We've addressed drainage issues around our community, particularly down off of Spruce Creek Road. We've built a Lakeside Pavilion, Veterans Park. We've expanded our tax base, which is very good for a residential tax raise, when you have good commercial development coming in. Well, when you have a good commercial tax base coming in, it helps lower your residential tax base, and that's what we like to provide for our 56,000 residents.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, for challenger Drew Bastian and incumbent Councilman Bob Pohlmann, this is Henry Frederick, and I appreciate your attendance in this first segment of tonight's 3 debates. Thank you. And let's give an applause to Mr. Senator. If